Hi, my name is Teck. I'm with Binance, and I'm the head of Binance X. Happy to be here.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to What the Fi is DeFi. This is our third event within the REIMAGINE series of conferences. I'll be one of your hosts today, Adam from MouseBelt, alongside Galen Danziger, co-founder and CTO of MouseBelt. If you missed our first two events, feel free to visit REIMAGINE 2020 website at ri2020.io for full access to over 100 interviews from some of your favorite projects and individuals in the space. Our main goal is simple. It's to talk with the top projects and leaders in the industry to shed some light and help us understand blockchain's real impact and innovation, advancements towards Web 3.0, and decentralized infrastructure of our future. Without further ado, we have an awesome guest today, Teck Chia from Binance X, to talk about his team and some of the DeFi trends in today's environment. Hello, Teck. How are you doing today? Welcome.
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
All right, pretty good. How you doing, Galen?
Oh, pretty good, pretty good.
So, Teck, first of all, thanks for joining us, taking time out of your day. I'm sure you're super busy. As everybody knows, we see you all over the world at various hackathons and conferences. But with the pandemic hitting, right, it's a whole shift, and now we're all at home. We have to do things virtually. But first of all, thanks for joining us to share share your thoughts, insights, not only in crypto, but more importantly about Binance X and what you guys are doing. So we'll go ahead and get into it. And I'm sure we have a wide range of viewers here. Binance has been part of all of our events, from Binance Charity to Binance US, and super excited to have your team involved. And now we're glad to have you here. Can you give us a little background on you, just how you got involved in blockchain?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got involved in blockchain, relatively early compared to most people. I found the Bitcoin white paper around 2012 or so. I read it, and I was always very interested in distributed systems, decentralized systems. So Bitcoin was just one of those things that piqued my interest. So I downloaded the Bitcoin core and started running it, and it was fascinating to me. And then at that time, 2012, there's a lot of the industry is just getting started. So I went to a few meetups and started interacting with people there and started getting interested with the whole concept of money or currency that is not controlled by anyone. So that's how I got involved, and I later quit my day job to go pursue a Bitcoin startup because I really thought that was the next big thing after mobile, just programmable money.
And where were you? Where were you, like, geographically?
I was in Silicon Valley. Yeah, I was working in Silicon Valley, and has always been. I started out in Silicon Valley, and that was like, yeah, I've been working there for quite a bit of time. By that time.
And so, where were these meetups? Like in Palo Alto, like in the city?
Yeah, they were really, really, really small. Back then, I remember I was in the city, and some of them were, at Coinbase's early offices and stuff like that. So it was like no more than like 20, 30 people at most. And then it grew over time. So, it was both, I was both fascinated by the technical aspects as well as the ideological aspects of Bitcoin.
For sure. And do you recall anybody that is now still in blockchain from those groups, like maybe Jed or
yeah
Eric?
Yeah, Jed. Yeah, everyone. I mean, like
Dan Held.
If you go to the Bitcoin Dev meetup in SF, even today, or even like maybe 6-7 months ago, pre-COVID, you still see some of the same people from back then still going to those meetups. So it's good to see. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. And we have like a long list, and we're going to tap into everything. But you've seen it. You've seen kind of the evolution of blockchain and crypto from the early days, and we'll touch on this even more. But from a product standpoint, how has that experience, leading up to 2011 or 12, when you pursued blockchain, how has that like impacted kind of what you're doing now? And we'll get into the details later, but that kind of mindset to help user experience and product development, right?
Yeah. In the early days, definitely there's a lot less focus on the product side of things. There's a lot more focus on the protocol, and all the pull requests were around at the protocol level. So there's very little emphasis on the end user experience, which arguably could be the reason why it wasn't widely adopted outside of the technical crowd. A lot of things still need to be done in a command line manner and stuff like that. There's not a lot of MetaMask type wallets out there. So over time, I think like when Ethereum started, a lot more things can be done with the blockchain. Opens up a ton of use cases, and then that's when the MetaMask of the world, the trust wallets of the world, came in and try to made it simpler to understand with UI UX improvements and innovations. And then now I think with a lot more use cases, especially now focused on DeFi, there's a class of apps and services that are just focused on abstracting out the complexity so that normal users could participate in these protocols.
For sure.
I think it's a good evolution.
No, definitely. And I think it's going to be an exciting discussion to kind of tap into some of those as we get deeper in this talk. And next, you said you were in Silicon Valley for quite some time. Obviously, you've been through these various cycles of disruption, right? These trends. And so can you compare and contrast some of the ones that you've been in, years back, and some of the similarities that you're seeing? And what are your thoughts on that? Where are we at kind of today? And we haven't even got into everything, but where are we today?
Yeah, I started my career at the height of the internet bubble, and then the rise of the mobile, which took a while. So from what I've seen, most disruption cycles, they don't actually happen linearly. So it's very hard to predict where the inflection point is, because it's a combination of timing and a set of technologies that need to happen to kind of create a perfect storm for the inflection point to happen. So for example, like right after the internet boom bust, whatever cycle, people like, hey, let's move on to the next disruptive thing. And it was essentially mobile, right? And it was flip phones. There were all these data services that was on crappy screens, low resolution stuff, but never really took off in the sense that not a lot of people were using those services. And then, of course, Steve Jobs came in and just, and that was an inflection point, 2007, I guess, that iPhone started, and then that Android came in, and then, and then just started App Store, and then that started, the mobile boom. And then from there, 2008 happened, and then I think Bitcoin, digital money was mostly in the realm of PayPal, Venmo type services, and then and Bitcoin, starting in 2008 in response to the 2008 crisis. It was both in response to the ideological kind of mindset that money should not be controlled by the Feds and the monetary supply, at least. And then, of course, like decentralized use cases when Ethereum came about. I think we're still super early because internet also started out as a set of protocols used by universities, and then it progressed to wide adoption by industry. I think crypto right now is just barely scratching the surface of financial markets as financial instruments as a use case, right? Of course, back then I remember when Vitalik was talking about Ethereum back in 2014, when at the Ethereum meetups, he was talking about like decentralizing Ubers and all these like marketplaces. And now we're just seeing DeFi, the financial markets, which is the obvious ones to get started. So I think, as always, all these things happen in a non-linear fashion. So a lot more things need to be built. And that's one of the reasons why we started Binance X, just to get more stuff into the ecosystem so that we kind of trigger that inflection point sooner.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. And in terms of things that you see that really need to get built, what are the missing things right now that really prevent like a takeoff from happening?
Yeah, so the obvious ones in 2000, maybe 18 or 2018 was Ethereum was too slow, the TPS is too little, so we need to build scalable blockchains, and all these new fangled innovations like layer 2 and all these different new chains with different consensus algorithm came up. So I think that to me, kind of has been solved to some extent because there's so many other chains that the collective TPS is like, hey, we have more TPS than use cases or transactions out there. Although most of the use cases are still on Ethereum. So then beyond that, just solving the scalability issue, we need to solve things like governance is one, as you've seen in the DeFi space, and usability UX is another one. I think in general, the unsolved problem that is not even in the realm of crypto even before that of encrypted stuff, right? The ability for individuals as well as enterprise to custody their own private keys, that's an unsolved problem. At the enterprise definitely is a lot more difficult because you involve multiple people and multiple hierarchies. That is still an unsolved problem. So today we still don't have encrypted email because that is primarily the issue. And that's the same issue as in crypto today because everyone needs to custody their own private keys, and there's different layers of trust where a centralized exchange will keep their private keys for other people, for our users. So some people prefer that, some people prefer keeping our private keys. So that has to be, of course, in the decentralized world, everybody has to keep their own private keys, and that has been made way simpler, way more recoverable, yet preserving, self-custody. So that's one. UI UX explaining all the intricacies of all these protocols, right? They're so very complicated even for crypto people. How the governance, as we've seen, is very, very important because if you don't understand governance, then the sushi swaps of the world would happen. So instead of looking at the white paper or whatever, you need a layer of easier kind of explanation to help people participate as a voter or as to understand where they don't want to participate in a protocol. Things like that. I think, generally speaking, the same set of things that are needed for a new technology, even for like a VR to happen, would be needed for crypto. But crypto needs a little bit more because it has to solve the custody issue, has to solve the governance issue, all those things.
And let's talk about, you touched on a wide array of things there, and we'll get into all of them, coming up. How about getting into, let's talk about Binance Labs a little bit and kind of Binance X, right? So yeah. I know Binance Labs is the VC arm of the Binance ecosystem. For everybody that's watching here, there's various entities within Binance. There's Binance.com, there's Binance US, Binance X, Binance Charity, and so Binance Labs. And to get understanding there, you joined Binance Labs and Binance X. You could probably tackle those at the same time, but what's the purpose of what is the purpose of Binance X and the Binance Labs, and what are they?
Yeah. So I joined Binance the Labs first, which is essentially a venture arm, and we is a very more of a traditional model where we invest in token projects, especially, or maybe equity projects also, but we add value more on the token side since we're a token exchange. And we basically serve as, curators of that fund, basically, where it's a corporate fund where we try to support good projects in the space. And that was started in early 2018. And then the difference between Binance X and Binance Labs is that Binance X doesn't necessarily have a mandate to invest, but to support the ecosystem and more at a technical level. So the kind of motivation behind starting Binance X was exactly what I mentioned before. We need to see a lot more building blocks in the ecosystem so that entrepreneurs could easily innovate. So for example, in the non-crypto space, in the mobile world, right, mobile industry, or even in the web industry, an entrepreneur could cobble together something really quickly from just free stuff like Bootstrap or whatever, Flutter, React Native, React, whatnot, without having to start from a very low level, start at a lower level in the stack. Whereas I think in the blockchain space, people still have to start at a very low level and build up. So I think we need a lot more of these building blocks so people can be less technical, so they can innovate closer to the users and closer to the use case. And that was the reason why Binance was started. And it started with that mandate, and then we use different programs to kind of support developers. So the one thing we've been doing was Binance X Fellowship grants, basically. So we engage very talented developers out there to support their open source projects. So if they want to build something that can be freely available and freely used by other developers or users, then we would fund them. And not necessarily in the Binance chain category, not necessarily just building stuff on the Binance chain, but it could be like on Bitcoin. We supported Bitcoin Core Dev, and on other chain we supported things on Grin as well. So generally, we're just wanting to make sure this industry grows.
And I think, and I think that's really important, right? To point out, we share similar views, and we start out the same way. A little bit reverse, actually. We started a development team, started building products, development support. We believe in the tech, right? And started working with internal and external projects and clients. And then it snowballed. That was kind of like mid-2017. And we noticed that the engineering talent, the development was kind of low. And we had close to 50 developers at that point. And that was an opportunity for us to kind of contribute back and add value. And then we started investing, kind of the reverse. Like we started investing directly at that point in the infrastructure and a lot of these blockchain protocols, some marketplaces. And then 2018 kind of came around, and a lot of the projects at that point were under delivering. There were some scams, some narratives, right? And kind of this whole cryptocurrency thing was going down the wrong path. And although like individuals like your teams and our team were understand what was going on, so that's when we started incubating projects with MouseBelt, right? And kind of fostering that innovation as much as possible with development, go-to market strategy. How can we get users? What can we do to streamline the process? Because at that point, 2017, 2018, all of 2018 was kind of the bear market, right? And that was us trying to give back, and we even took a long-term bet on investing at the university level, which the students were moving much quicker. So that's kind of awesome to relate to you on that front, going back a few years, because it's very important. And so Binance X has been around now, I think, close to 18 months or 12 months.
Yeah, about a year and a half.
About a year and a half.
Yeah.
And so what would you say at the 12 months? Well, how has that been? The successes and challenges. I'm assuming the vision that you had prior to launching Binance X, has that been executed? Are you happy? Are we in a good direction?
Yeah, I think it's played out quite well. I mean, there's some DeFi projects that are starting up from talent that was funded, that have been engaged early on. We've known a lot of the 1inch exchange guys for since they were attending all these hackathons back in the day, and then now they're have this really nice project. And we got to lead that round when they went to raise money. So I would say that we engaged like about 60 developers and projects, and a lot of them are doing very, very interesting stuff. And to me, like even year and a half is a very short time to see returns on those investments, on those grants, because typically VC investments, as take a longer time to see the results, and we've seen results just for supporting all the developers and keeping them engaged. So far, and we plan to do more of that with the Binance Smart Chain Fund. Now that we have smart contracts capability, a lot more things can be done.
What kind of trends are you seeing? Because I think at one point it was infrastructure, right? Stablecoins started coming out, I think early 2018. I remember spotting those out. And then 2019 was kind of, a little bit more, I don't know, even on the corporate side, corporate entities and the Walmarts of the world, right? Kind of leveraging DLT. But what have you seen? What's the trend? This is obviously a DeFi event, so we'll get into that. But what are you seeing at a high level I'm sure you get a lot of applications, a lot of projects. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, so I mean, the DeFi really, it's getting a lot of hype, a lot of attention, a lot of transaction volume these days. But it's been quite a long time coming, right? If you think about DeFi was talked about, last year and even before that. DeFi pulse around. You can check all the different protocols out there. Maker was king. There used to be Maker dominant.
Maker was, I think, like 2014, right, Galen? Are you familiar?
Yeah, Maker's way back now.
Yeah, exactly. Maker is like the old school DeFi, and then it took a while to get to a point where a lot of people are participating in it. In terms of trends, I think, like I said, the first use case is always decentralizing the obvious, which is decentralizing the financial markets, creating financial instruments, making them decentralized instruments. So you have to go to a centralized place to trade or to hedge, to buy insurance and all that stuff. And these kind of stuff have been talked about even during the Bitcoin days, to be honest, even though Bitcoin had, very little capability for smart contracts, but those use cases were talked about. And then Ethereum came and definitely talked about it more. So it took quite a number of years to get here. So in terms of trends going forward, I think it's still going to be, if let's say, DeFi has gone somewhat mainstream and people are, participating in DeFi every day. And then the next layer would be like, if you just follow what the non-crypto evolution of innovation, like once you solve all these ways all these financial markets, where you make it more efficient, more fluid, more accessible, then the next set of innovating could be just, it's very hard to tell, by the way, because, if you think about, let's say the US making it easy for startups to access capital through venture capital, and then, a NASDAQ for public capital, like that kind of stuff could happen in crypto where, of course, we've seen ICOs, but then now there's maybe governance built in where ICOs become a little bit more structured and safe, or more, I would say, compliant and responsible, right?
Right.
Self-regulating, I would say. So beyond that, I think you would see, once people get a taste of like decentralizing financial markets, maybe the next set of use cases would be decentralizing all these different networks, the Ubers, the compute, all this stuff that's, it might be easier to decentralize.
And are you seeing that? Are you seeing that in your portfolio, or is a lot of DeFi stuff, or is it kind of a range of, I don't know, healthcare or energy or gaming and gambling still?
I mean, typically, developers will chase after where funding is going, and definitely DeFi is there's still a lot to be built in DeFi. So I think we're still funding that. A lot of VCs are still funding that. So naturally, developers would flock towards DeFi use cases, DeFi products and services.
It's kind of interesting. I think one of the first people to bring up the comparisons of like traditional markets and DeFi, and I keep thinking of this hype, right? And then I'm thinking, are we innovating, or are we just replicating the current system? It just and we'll even abstract the decentralization of more automation, right? Like it's just we're taking out the middleman and kind of. So it's kind of, I'm trying to figure out if there's a trend on, can we identify some of the traditional side with, the future of what, how it's going to evolve, and if, at a bird's eye view, like, predict a little bit of what's next, and we just replicate this area and figure out the infrastructure and the network and blah, 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 and what are you seeing as far as the talent pool? Non-technical and technical, obviously you're getting, you guys have this whole ecosystem. So how has that been since your time at Binance and seeing that? I'm assuming, everybody's getting better, more knowledgeable, informed.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the developer pool is getting bigger and better. Just, as evolution progresses or technology progresses, like more content materials get produced, and then more protocols or more innovation gets built, and then you can build on top of the innovation, right? So it gets easier and easier to innovate for the next thing. It gets faster too. It's like, just as non-crypto innovation cycles go, every next disruption cycle is much shorter than the previous one because it is building on the previous innovation and platforms. So, I think we're seeing the same thing in crypto, like DeFi. You have a million forks of these AMM pools, and of course there are different governance tweaks and stuff like that. And that's innovation, in my opinion, really, just testing out many different things. A majority of them would crash and burn, but then a few good ones will emerge out of that.
Let's get it. You might as well get into that. I kind of had some of these DeFi kind of questions in a few minutes, but we might as well get into it. Let's talk about some of the solutions that Binance is providing, right? So you have the Binance smart contract chain, you have a stable coin, you have your own token, right? You have this whole ecosystem of products and usability. And not only that, I think what's important is the community, right? Yeah. The trust, the transparency a little bit. Everybody knows Binance. So it kind of makes sense. Let's touch on maybe BNB was developed on an ERC20, and the standards, and now you merged to BNB, and now you're using Cosmos. Let's touch on some of that stuff. So what's the purpose of the token? First of all, are you the first exchange with a token?
One of the first, I guess. Yeah, right. One of the first. And then, of course, there's now a lot. And we use the token, as a discount token to pay for transaction fees. In fact, I think it's one of the most used utility token out there. It's a lot of velocity in that token.
Why do you think that is? More users, community driven?
I mean, we have a lot of users, and they use BNB and as both a base token to trade for other tokens, as well as to pay for fees and things like that. We design it that way. And a BNB is also, as we launched the Binance DEX more than a year and a half ago, and then now the Binance Smart Chain is the native token to pay for gas fees and things like that. So it's multiple utilities, and now, with some of these CeFi to DeFi bridges, if you will, we're building very simple ways for people to participate in DeFi without having to go through all the complexity. That is being used as a staking token as well. And eventually, I think CZ has mentioned that it might eventually become, as Binance become more and more decentralized, it might become a governance token at some point. Who knows? But, we evolved the utility of it.
Well, was it a good move? I'm sure Galen has some questions. I'll let him jump in here. Was it a good move to go from the ERC20 standard to to move to your own chain? Even from a congestion, scalability, throughput, all of that stuff, was that kind of at the forefront of making that decision?
I mean, that's part of it for sure. I mean, also having our own DEX, having a native token to pay for gas is a natural kind of, requirement for a blockchain. And we use Cosmos, which, it's a lot cheaper and faster in consensus versus Ethereum. Of course, there's no smart contracts capability, so you trade off some of that features or capabilities, and then I think it's it's a natural move. I would say it's not
Yeah, and for your choice there, why do you guys opt for Tendermint? I've seen that they got audited by Jepson. They've gone through a little bit more rigor on the distributed system side for sure. But what was really the deciding choice for you guys when you're planning that out?
I'm not on the Binance chain team, but I think in general it's just the fact that Tendermint has been around for a long time. It's been time tested. It's well tested by people. And other chains have been using the consensus stack. So I think that's one of the reasons. Of course, there are other reasons that they've considered that I don't know about, but that's what I'm guessing.
Oh, for sure. And then with that, so I know you guys have started to roll out smart contract functionality. What are your plans for the future with that?
Yeah, so we just got started, really. I mean, this Binance Smart Chain
In
just got
April?
launched.
In April?
No, actually, August, end of August.
Oh,
Oh
The,
wow.
the mainnet, the mainnet, yeah. So it's literally like 1 or 2 months, since it launched. So we're just at the beginning of it, and we're of course, with every new blockchain, we need to build an ecosystem so that people could build interesting stuff and use the blockchain um, for those interesting use cases. And we're at the beginning of that. We started the Binance Smart Chain Accelerator Fund, which Binance X is helping to deploy and source and curate the applications that are coming in. And then the vision is to just build a blockchain that people love to use, and then that's easy to use, it's fast, it's cheap, and then it has a native DEX behind it, so you can actually trade for other tokens, all in a decentralized manner. So I think that's the vision.
Oh, very cool.
how about Galen? You want to touch on the DEX part?
Oh, yeah. I could hop into that a little bit. So I've seen a lot of these other dexes where the Uniswap style, where they have like automated market making. And then I've seen more traditional dexes where you have like a limit order book and individual orders interacting. Why do you guys choose, because I've seen these AMM style ones blowing up. Why do you guys choose for a more traditional structure?
I think that was to cater to our users who are more familiar with that order book style DEX model. As a lot of our users on our central exchange are very used to that model as well. And this other model has been in the non-crypto world. It's been well tested for decades. So I think that's a model that people are familiar with, and that's why we went with it. That was way before the DeFi stuff happened. The AMM pools and Uniswaps got invented. Of course, now with BSC, Binance Smart Chain, a lot of AMM pools are getting started there too. So depending on kind of what level of sophistication you are as a user or trader, you might prefer the AMM type user experience versus the order book type experience. So I think, I think, we need to provide as many options as possible to our users. And so we have a large number of users, and they come in different shapes and forms and preferences. So we have both, and we let the users decide which ones they want to use.
Absolutely.
I'll let you finish on, Galen, but I think that's good to note as well. And you're listening to your users, right? You're coming from a different perspective of like massive Binance that has, transacts billions, and establishing or creating the DEX. It seems like it's an evolution. You're giving the option, but you're also listening to kind of what the community is used to dealing with Binance. And I think that's kind of, very critical as you try to provide other products, and as I mentioned, that from CFI to DeFi, and allowing these users to kind of ease into it and get a better understanding to migrate over time. Because I think obviously Binance has been around a long time, so it has that reputation. I just think I'm a Binance user as well, so to understand what I'm doing here to now move over, I think it's gonna be a seamless process for a lot of your community, right?
Yeah, I think DeFi started out with very sophisticated users, right? I mean, people who use Uniswap from the beginning, they're very sophisticated. They know how AMM pools work. Whereas Binance users are more retail oriented, so they may not be the first adopter of all these newfangled things like Uniswaps, AMM pools, and things of that sort. So we kind of bridge that gap between having to know a lot about DeFi protocols versus like just wanting to get something done, doing exchange for a token and then do staking and things like that. We bridge that gap, and then and then
Sure.
Now we serve the whole spectrum, right? We have the Binance blockchain. You want to go all out on participating protocols directly, custody of your own keys, that's fine. You want to go through staking pools, that's cool too. And then you don't have to know much about a lot of things. Yeah.
And what about the wallet? We haven't even talked about Trust Wallet yet.
Yeah.
How where does that fit in all this?
Yeah, Trust Wallet. I mean, Trust Wallet, as CZ kind of mentioned often, it's like the browser of the crypto world. Like everybody has to use a wallet in order to participate in crypto or use crypto. So Trust Wallet at a time, when it was, Binance actually engaged Trust Wallet. Victor from Trust Wallet he was raising money at the time. So we thought it was a really good product. I used Trust Wallet even before I joined Binance.
Me too.
Yeah, so I thought it was one of the best wallets out there in terms of usability, and user experience. So we approached Victor and say, hey, why don't you join the Binance family and just help grow this industry together? And he decided to join us, and then we're now Trust Wallet is part of Binance. So Trust Wallet continues to innovate at a pretty quick, pretty fast pace. We support a ton of tokens. You can trade, you can do lots of stuff just within Trust Wallet. So that's simply, it's pretty simple, why we wanted to, collaborate with Trust Wallet.
Yeah, so I saw at Trust Wallet, they said they split off the SDK, and it looks like I've seen a few other wallets that have incorporated that core technology into using their wallet.
Yeah.
Are you collaborating with people in terms of adding new coins, working on new features through open source there?
Yeah, so if you look at the Binance X website, which is binancex.dev, Trust Wallet is listed as one of the platforms that developers could innovate on. Of course, that's based on the fact that they open source, some of the core to help new blockchains, new coins integrate into Trust Wallet, and that's one of the reasons why Trust Wallet was able to support so many coins so quickly. I anticipate more stuff to be more platform to expose, so that the community could innovate together and faster. So that was literally the motivation behind open sourcing the core SDK.
Okay, cool, for sure.
To go back to the DEX, is it just a matter of time to build up? I mean, you have so many transactions on Binance, right? Is it just going to take time for them to move over? Because obviously there's other DEXs with more volume and transactions. You just think it's just a matter of time for them to kind of boost up the Binance DEX specifically?
I would say, depending on how people get comfortable with holding their own private keys over time, maybe the next generation of crypto users are super comfortable with holding our private keys and remembering 12-word seeds, 24-word seeds, and things of that sort, being able to recover if things, their phone, drops into the water or whatnot.
So you think it's an education kind of?
It's education. It's also kind of getting used to new stuff. Just like, when internet came along, people were really confused. And then next generation is just natural, right? Because they started using when they were kids. So I think the same thing will happen. The next generation would be like, crypto is super simple to understand for them.
Nice.
Yeah, so then maybe DEX would have more volume and,
it'll pick that. It's a matter of time.
Yeah, I think so.
Sorry, I'll go ahead. So also, let's see here. Touching on, I've heard you in the past talk about distribution, and we went through the ICO kind of craze in 2017. Everybody tried the airdrop thing, or still, IEOs, right? I thought it was kind of a great idea, depending, nobody knew what was going to happen, but I thought that was kind of a good product or a good way to kind of, gain some community. How about yield farming? So yield farming versus ICO versus IEO. Is this another vehicle of bootstrapping a project? And it seems like it's a little bit better, but I just kind of want to get your thoughts on how yield farming, attracting new users, utility of it, governance, right? You kind of have some more skin in the game as opposed to an airdrop and like you're getting free tokens and it's a mindset. But what's your kind of perspective on yield farming and the other ways to gain users?
Yeah, I think it's better. I personally think it's better because you are actually participating in the protocol and they're incentivizing certain behaviors with tokens, obviously. Instead of what ICO was that you bought in a token and in anticipation that the token be used in certain ways, and you don't really know whether you don't know ahead of time whether it will actually be realized, that use case will be realized. Whereas now it's like, hey, you get a token for actually participating in the protocol or doing what they actually want to incentivize you to do. So I think it's a little better.
And do you think the mindset's a little bit different in the sense of ICOs? I want this thing to pump super, I want this thing to take off, as opposed to I'm getting involved in an ecosystem. I'm trying to contribute and add value, meaning it's not instant gratification, right? You're kind of like committing, would you say?
Yes, even though there's still aspects of wanting to make quick money, I would say there's a lot more of the participatory aspect to it now than before, with the yield farming or yield tokens and governance tokens that get minted when you do certain things with the protocol. So I think from that perspective, I think it's better. I feel like it's easing people into like being real communities of that particular use case or particular protocol, which is what blockchain have been trying to do for a long time.
And also I think, right, like there's an actual working product.
Yes, that's a working product, exactly.
Right? Like in the past, we got the tokens and a white paper.
Right.
And a promise, right, Galen? Is that what you went through in the past?
Yeah, pretty much. There were a lot of white papers, a lot of ICOs, and very few projects.
How many quotes do you think you've done, Galen, over the last few years?
A lot for people who fundraised and disappeared.
We had so many quotes over the last years of people raising money and they wanted to build master nodes and all kinds of crypto products, but it's kind of interesting. But sorry, not to like go off track, but there's product now, right? And kind of Uniswap didn't even have a token at first. Now they just launched a token. But I think from a contributor or I guess participant of the ecosystem, I'm trying to choose my words wisely. It's a little bit better from that front, right?
Yeah, totally. Now you can be a stakeholder in Uniswap, not just from an investor point of view, but being a kind of a decision maker, kind of a small decision maker, that you can put your voice behind that token. So it's definitely better.
And I think did you guys also recently launch like your own yield farming? Is it called Bella? Am I right on that? Or
yeah, so that's a product called Launchpool, which is kind of like the DeFi version of Launchpad. And Launchpad, if you don't already know, is IEO platform. The main value of Launchpad is actually distribution. It's not just fundraising. Fundraising is probably the lesser aspect of the value of the product. I think it's distribution, because we do have people who are very interested in crypto within our platform. So having a project launch on that platform, you immediately get your target user base that are very interested in your protocol, immediately have a stake in the outcome of your project. And so we kind of created Launchpool for the new DeFi world, where it's mostly about yield farming, where you get a stake when you do certain things with the protocol. And to make it easier, we make it so that you don't have to fire up MetaMask and things like that. You can just do it from your Binance account. So yeah, we've done one. The second one's coming up, and then it's been quite successful so far.
Nice.
One question in general about yield farming. just browsing through a few of these platforms like Sushi, Uniswap, a lot of them are promising 30% to 100% annual yield, or like
Right.
0.25% daily yield.
Right.
Does this seem realistic long term to you?
Probably not. I mean, nothing yields that much value in such a short time. But just as even if you go back to the internet.com era, there's aspect of speculative investing going on, or both, like people who are holding tokens in a hopes that this protocol or this project would become very valuable. And that's the whole reason why I think the APYs are so high, because people have such high hopes or high speculative kind of, expectations.
Yeah.
They're willing to pay that kind of APYs. So, yeah, I mean, it happens in the .com boom bust era, and then out comes, out of that boom bust cycle, Amazon, Google, Facebook.
You've seen this movie already.
I've seen this movie just in different times, like at different eras. Yeah.
Do you think some of the debacles that have recently happened, what kind of a perception or effects does that have on the market, on the masses, and two, do you think we're just more mature now as the space? As obviously we're still small, but more mature in the sense of these shocks, we can kind of get by, and then we actually learn from them, as opposed to some of the past scams and frauds where it was like all hell broke loose.
Yeah, we definitely learned from the past mistakes and past failures. And this time around, yes, there are what they called exit scams and stuff happening in DeFi world as well, but I classify them as like governance fails, right? I mean, they were allowed to exit with that money. I mean, DeFi protocol governance scheme should be more.
So
or
is
less.
it a buyer? Is that a buyer beware then a little bit?
Yeah. So yes, it would educate people on the buyer beware aspect of it, but then I feel like the next set of protocols, when you learn from this experience, you would impose governance schemes or governance guardrails where these kind of stuff won't happen. So you would design governance in a way that aligns incentives the right way for all participants, including the project founders and things like that. So I think it's a learning process. I think it's a good iterative cycle for projects, protocols, even participants to go through that kind of pain, so that they're more aware of it going forward.
No, good stuff. I think it's all interesting, and obviously we've been having like a lot of these interviews and talking about the past projects that have whatever didn't make it. As you mentioned, I like what you said. They're more bad governance, right? Bad mechanisms for us to understand and learn from, and hopefully develop and get better from. How do you think the DeFi space? So Binance is all over the world. You guys have hubs in various countries, continents. How do you see it? And you obviously nobody's traveled in the last 6, 7, 8 months, so it's a little bit different. But how do you see the DeFi market kind of penetrating some of the frontier markets? So I know you're in Africa, right? I know you're in other parts of the world. How does this? Is this kind of still too complex? Are we getting ahead of our skis a little bit, or is it benefiting the masses on the adoption of usability of crypto?
No, I think it's beneficial. I think one of the most exciting thing about crypto for me is the fact that it's very democratizing. Like anyone could access these protocols anywhere in the world, whereas in the traditional finance world, like for example, no one, like even buying Apple stock or Tesla stock, like only US folks could get access to it, right? So then in other countries, you have to go through hoops and to get there. I think now, the person sitting in India or Africa could have access to the same liquidity or same financial market as the person sitting in Wall Street in New York City. That's very, very powerful to me. Yeah, and then, in fact, some of these countries like Africa or continents or economies have a better appreciation for crypto than the first world countries, right? So,
and that was gonna be kind of like another question as well. Where are you seeing in these regions? Maybe not specific, but as far as like particular regions, but or cities or states, but in these regions, are you? Because again, Binance is all over. I know you traveled, from the past. And are you seeing them like picking up this crypto adoption rather quickly? Are some more advanced than others? Because I know, like specifically in Africa, they've been using kind of this digital payment system for a while.
Yep.
I know you're working with, or Binance in general as an ecosystem works with governments, right, and kind of public officials. Are they, getting more involved with you, and vice versa? Are you getting more involved with them to educate them, develop, and show them the way?
Yeah, we actually have an African initiative kind of headed by one of my coworkers from Binance Labs called Yale. He started this product called Bundle, which is a wallet that could, both be a traditional like crypto wallet but could also be used for, things like payments and participating in these DeFi protocols and things like that. So it's a almost like a bank in the palm of your hand. That's a use case that's like very relevant to Africa, but not as relevant to US because everybody can just open a bank account. But over there, banking is not accessible to a lot of people, so they have to like kind of self-bank with crypto. So they do understand crypto really well because of the lack of these services, banking services. So we do have an effort there, and Yella is leading that effort, and we're getting.
And is it being welcomed?
Yeah, we're getting a lot of actually growing at a rapid pace, and I think it's becoming one of the better. Yeah, it's called Bundle.Africa if you want to check it out.
Yeah, and then the governments, I'm assuming, are the governments and state officials and public agencies. I'm assuming support you. You guys work together in a collaborative effort.
Yeah. We always try to work with governments, and other entities within that country. Yeah, to make crypto more accessible.
Yep.
So
for sure.
I've seen things with when Binance has been getting involved in other countries. I've seen things like Binance Cloud, where it looks like you're not directly running the operations. You're just giving a platform that another company who does that will do that. What is the reason for this? Is it regulatory or?
No, I think it's. We're still relatively a small country for the number of countries or jurisdictions we operate in. I think this is a way for us to partner with people who are more knowledgeable and aware and more in tune with the market and regulatory conditions in that particular region, to where they may not necessarily have the technical ability to start an exchange, and we have the technical ability. We've done it for more than 3 years now. We want to kind of partner with people local on the ground who are better than us in those areas, and we're better on the technology side. It's a good partnership to go after that market through the Binance Cloud, which is essentially an exchange as a service, right? So that product you brand it locally, not as a Binance, but we power the back end of it. We provide the liquidity, we provide the technology, and those things. So you don't have to worry about those things. Just focus on the marketing, the technical support, customer support, and regulatory issues.
The important, critical stuff of those regions.
Right. It's a way to scale out our exchange throughout the world.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Sort of let other people specialize. Let's see. So You also talked about you support projects in different countries. You have the Binance Cloud in different countries. Does Binance do anything else to reach out in other different parts of the world?
We do so many things. At any point in time, there's so many initiatives going on. Of course, we are not geographically constrained from the developer point of view, from the developer kind of ecosystem point of view. The exchange side, definitely, every country jurisdiction has its own rules and regulations. So we tend to, have teams that are focused on different regions. So we do our best to kind of, at the end of the day, our kind of mission is to provide access to crypto to as many people as possible around the world. And so we, at any point in time, there's a whole, slew of initiatives, staff teams, and things like that. They're working towards that mission. So, and most of them I don't even know about. So it's too many to keep track of. But yeah, as you know, we have local fiat exchanges like Binance US. Exchange Korea.
You're right. We're talking to Binance US on a couple initiatives, like you just mentioned, and even within the states, it's very regulated. So got to be careful which states we're, working in and not working in. But I think the end result, and you just touched on it, is driving users, right? Giving accessibility to crypto, however that looks, whether that's investments, whether that's through marketing as far as hackathons and kind of university initiatives and events. Which is very important, and I like that. I like that you're just trying to reach out to the masses on showing them how to onboard, how to use the platform, and then not only that, the ecosystem within Binance and how to leverage that. If you want to build something, you want to donate, you want to invest. It's kind of cool. I like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So I think we're running up on time here. Galen, any last minute questions? If not, we're going to wrap it up.
I think I'm good. Yeah, thanks very much for your time, Teck.
Yeah, happy to participate in this discussion. Super interesting. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Teck, for joining us. For everybody watching, this is What the Fi is DeFi. Trying to bring you the best influencers in the space, the leaders in the space. Very fortunate to have Teck join us here out of his busy day. Very fortunate to have the whole Binance team join us during our last 3 conferences. We appreciate that and their efforts. For everybody watching at home, feel free to visit the website for over 100 interviews from some of your top projects and people. And you can visit that at ri2020.io. I guess that concludes our discussion. Teck, thank you. We chatted for over an hour here. I appreciate it. We hope to have you back. And stay safe and healthy, and we'll talk again.
Thank you so much, guys. Take care. Bye.